This is the market kickoff. The kickoff to the market. The market kickoff. 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 Kickoff to the market.
Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Hoag? How we doing?
Hey, what's up, Jay? Good Sunday evening, everyone. This is unusual for me to be here on Sunday evening, but really appreciate Jay letting me pop in and hang out for a little while.
Appreciate you joining us, Hoag. Happy Sunday, and maybe it's even Monday morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to another market kickoff, where we review what our plan is for the week in the markets. Hoag and I were talking in the green room, Hoag, and we can have a plan. The market can do whatever it wants. So we're going to try to plan here. We know the volatility that we've been seeing over the past couple of days. Do our best to prep for the week. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. Been a Topstep Performance Coach since June of 2023. Been in the futures markets for the past 6 years and trading for the past 13. And you guys know Hoag, but Hoag, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Hoag. I've been here with TopStep pretty much from the beginning. Had the wonderful opportunity to work with thousands of all of you traders, and I'm just happy to be here today. I know the markets are going to be a little bit hairy, a little bit scary. It's going to be an interesting week, challenging week. They all seem to be challenging weeks. Just kind of trying to get my head wrapped around what might happen this week. Jay and I were just talking in the green room, and I've looked at watched all the talking heads, read a lot of the talking heads, and nobody knows what's going to happen. So it's going to be yet another learning opportunity for all of us as traders.
Awesome stuff, Hoag. So let's get into the charts. Let's get right into it. We have my charts up here. I'm looking at a monthly chart on the S&Ps. And we can see we sold off pretty hard all of March, and the start of April just continued that pattern here, Hoag. Trading at 50,096. I thought what was really interesting, and we're not going to maybe see it on these on a monthly chart, but if we go to a weekly, the 200 moving average on the weekly chart is down at 49.10. We got a bunch of markets, a bunch of equity markets that are either approaching bear markets or already in them. If we look at the NASDAQ, but that, to me, Hoag, just seems like the start of the downward move, especially with the headlines that we've seen. Right, a lot of this move has been expedited due to the tariff news that we've seen. Obviously, Wednesday we had Liberation Day, and that kind of expedited that selling. And maybe we're just starting. If we look at, and we've been making this comparison to 2022, where we had about a 25% drawdown in the S&Ps, about a 35% drawdown in the NASDAQ. We're about 2/3 of the way there, if that's the measured move that we're going to have on a higher time frame. We'll see how the markets open up. We'll do a quick poll in the chat. 1 in the chat if you think we open up with a gap down. 2 in the chat if you think we open up with a gap up. But these markets are looking heavy, Hoag. Markets are looking heavy on a weekly time frame, a daily time frame. We had death cross, right? The 50 moving average crossing below that 200. 59.04 is the 50 moving average. 59.15 is the 200 moving average. So that's not something that we see often, right? The last time we saw it was 2022, and spent most of the year in 2022 in the red, if not all of it, before we made a recovery in 2023. So, heavy markets, opportunity giving markets though, right, to the upside or the downside. But it's a sell the rally regime right now until that changes. I'm going to switch it over to your charts really quick, Hoag. Let me know what you're seeing on your side. I love having Hoag here. If you guys don't know, and you do know at this point, Hoag with the weekly kickoff levels, is the guy who puts those levels up on the screen. We got your charts up here now, Hoag. We're not going to ask you for the sauce that you make the weekly kickoff levels with. But show us what you're seeing on your side, what we can potentially look for in this week in the S&Ps.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, the weekly kickoff levels are sometimes really kind of complicated to get to, sometimes not so much. This week, not so much, because we are so far off the highs and we're really out of balance. And this market is going to be spending, I think, the next, depending on what happens in the world, I think it's going to be spending the next few weeks probably seeking its next area where it's comfortable just kind of playing, looking at this weekly chart, looking at this daily chart. It's out of balance. It's out of whack. Things are there's a lot of uncertainty there. So this week I've got basically the 20% off the all-time high pegged as the weekly kickoff low, and it's not that far away, folks. And we're not the only ones that are looking at these levels here. So you can see right here, 49.88 even is 20% off the all-time high in the S&Ps. And that is that bear market territory, depending on how you define a bear market. We had Coach Jay talking about, NASDAQ is below that level. S&P is coming down to that level. So we're looking at these markets as turning into bear markets. I've got right here 47.55.25, 47.55.25, 47.55.25. That's the 7% level for today.
Or to know.
55 quarter. Are we going to hit it?
So Hoag, this sell-off, this entire move down has felt pretty orderly, right? Where if we look at
Mhm.
some of the last times we've had some of these moves like this, if you look at COVID, we had these limit down days and they happened really quick. Um, this has been a sell-off for almost 2 months now, right? We're going back to the middle of February where we still haven't really seen that capitulation move on a daily. So it's kind of scary to think, like you said, do we hit it? We need to pay attention to these 7% levels, and for top step traders, the 5% level, which we'll figure out exactly what that is, 5% from settlement, from Friday's settlement. But it's kind of crazy to think where we've come this far down and we have not had a limit down day. I'm not asking for one, I'm not looking for one, but with the markets kind of just orderly selling off this way, you have to think that there's some capitulation at some point, and maybe it's below that 20% level in the S&Ps. Kind of hard to tell. Hard to
Jay, did
tell.
we see it Friday?
It's a good question. Friday after the close, and I'll back over to my charts really quick. Fridays after the close did have continued selling, and we kind of saw this all week, right? Where after the markets closed, we've seen the Nasdaq sell off another 100 points. We've seen the S&P sell off, another 40 points after the close. That feels like it could have been it. Right? It doesn't necessarily need to be a limit down day. If we look at I lost my volume on this chart, so I'll bring it back up. But if we look at the volume on the daily, that is the
Oh,
highest daily volume candle that we've had
huge.
since 2022 in the S&Ps. So that
Mhm.
that very well could be it. That very well could be it from a volume perspective, where we just see that exhaustion move and then go from there.
So I'm looking at in the S&Ps Thursday's breakdown here added an approximate 56,000 contracts to the short side. Friday, 71,000 additional open interest to the downside. This is not long liquidation. This is new selling. This is new business. I don't think it's over yet.
Yep.
Of course, I mean that could, Jay, everybody could come and say, okay, we're gonna cut our tariffs, and I mean that could happen at any time, and that's gonna seriously, of course, change everything. ACH, right?
Right.
So what we are seeing, instead of just long liquidation and people getting out of these equity futures, we're seeing selling coming in.
Yeah. Hoag, and we do have some traders, and at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what is causing these markets to sell off. I think you can make the correlations between, the times we saw tariff headlines come out and the selling that we've seen. Um, do we know that these tariffs are going to cause a bear market or a recession? We don't. But even without all that, Hoag, with none of the news considered at all, we haven't seen a bid in these markets since mid-February. all of the orders from a volume perspective, right? Who cares why they're selling? And us as traders, especially as technical traders, Hoag, I think I consider you a technical trader as well. I don't hear you talk too much about the fundamentals. From a technical perspective, there's just volume coming into the sell side, right? We're just calling out some of the bigger orders that we see on Topstep TV. Not really many passive bids sitting out there showing any
Yeah,
size. No
right.
one's really eager to step in and buy this for whatever reason, right? The great part about being a day trader is that we don't have to be an economist. We just have to trade the markets that are in front of us. But these markets are selling off for whatever reason. Um, and I think we do see some continuation. Hope. Why don't we look at the Nasdaq really quick before we open? We got about
Sure.
4 minutes to the open. Looking at the Nasdaq real quick, we talked about this. We are in that bear market territory, which is just measuring that 20%. We're about 23% off the all-time high in the Nasdaq. And again, what I'm looking at on a weekly is this 200 moving average on the weekly chart. Now, with the Top Step X charts, we're getting a little bit of a lack of data, but I checked this on TradingView and a couple of other platforms as well. It's about in this general area, 16,660s, which is 4.5% from where we are right now. If you look at if you look at a chart that has continuation data that goes back to to the 2000s, early 2000s, we've hit that weekly 200 moving average, I think 4 times in the last 2 decades. Uh, it doesn't happen often. And when it does, it's usually a pretty good spot for the markets to bounce. But we do not hit the 200 moving average on the weekly often. And we're coming down to it from a technical perspective here. Um,
I
let's
gotta look
see.
that up.
Yeah,
Look that up.
I just looked it up. I pulled up a trading view chart, and we don't touch it often. But we have this major 17,000 level in the Nasdaq right below us here, about 400 points from where we closed on Friday. It's about
Uh-huh.
2.5%, which seems like a small day at this point in the Nasdaq Hoag. But
Seems
let
like
me
an
switch.
open.
Right, let me switch over to your charts and tell us what you're looking at potentially in the Nasdaq here.
All right.
We'll go from there.
So yeah, I'm just kind of looking at that 200 session moving average on that weekly chart as well.
Mhm.
Obviously, the market state has changed. It is out of balance. It is seeking a new level for two-sided trade to occur, and I think it's going to take some time for it to do that. We've got this is the daily. I don't think this is necessarily correct. Is it? Are we not below the 20% off the all-time high in the Nasdaq?
We are, yeah, we are. So that the all-time high I
I'm
have
missing a
at.
bar here. I think I'm missing a bar here. That's what the problem is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're missing. It looks like you're missing Friday's price action there.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, 17,483. That 20% level was, where was that? Right around
18.
18,120, somewhere
Yes.
around there.
18,137. I've got it on here. So, yeah, I mean, we are below that. We are in bear market territory. 25% off the all-time high, 17,004, 17,000 by all rights, right? I've got a weekly kickoff a little bit lower than that. I'm looking at these equities at these uh, tech stocks is in a little bit more risk than some of the other stocks. I've got the weekly kickoff low at 16,118, 16,118, largely a measured move. But that's going to take us down near 30% off that all-time high, near 30% off that all-time high. Uh, these are, Jay, I don't know about you, but these are not my markets. These are markets that I'm much better off just watching,
Okay,
having some popcorn, and then just waiting for something to change. I don't want to chase. When things go fast, I go slow, and it's worked for me ever since I figured that out. There
nice.
were there were there were times, and especially in the pit, well, when you're seeing all this volatility and this big opportunity, it's pretty hard to stand there with your arms folded. There
Mm.
were certain days that it was really good too, and certain days that it was not really good too. So when volatility hits, I'm about 50-50. All right, we are open, Jay. We are
We are
open, right?
open. We're gapping down about 3% right now in the Nasdaq. Nasdaq currently trading at 16,963.
Uh-huh.
Wow. See, we got some data coming in. I'm gonna try to refresh my charts here. Guys, be very careful trading this right now. When we saw the Sunday open last week, there was about a 650 tick gap in the NASDAQ. We can see how thin this DOM is right now.
Uh-huh.
16,919. I'm gonna pull up my quote board really quick here. We're already down 4% in the NASDAQ. Let's get that 5% level really quick, Hoag. Um, just so we know, traders, remember if you're trading in a Topstep XFA or live account, you do not want to be trading these markets when they're down 5%. We have the Russell down 4.7%. The NASDAQ getting ready to hit that 5% level right now. Micros, even at this point, is probably not a safe bet. NASDAQ down 4.8%. Wow. Uh, this is, yeah, this is not the market to trade right now. We can
No.
watch it. We can sit here and watch it, Hoag. NASDAQ currently trading 16,655. Your weekly kickoff level was 16,122. And that's probably two days away from where we are right now. NASDAQ down 5.41% currently. Continuing to sell. S&Ps has a little bit more room. S&Ps down 3.74%. Remember, traders, if you're trading in a Topstep XFA or live account, close your position. Some serious selling here. Hoag,
Yeah.
do you know these limit down the circuit breakers? Do they come into effect in the pre-market in the overnight session? I know
Yes.
okay, awesome. So we'll be watching for those. I'm gonna turn off the audio alerts here my side, but yeah, wow. Hoag messaged me on Friday after the close, and he said, "Hey, Sunday's open is going to be pretty crazy. You mind if I join you?" Hoag, I'm happy to have you here because these are crazy times we're seeing. We're seeing the Nasdaq bounce here back above that 5% level. Traders, again, just because we're above that 5%, I would not be looking to just jump in front of this and buy it. These markets can, when we start getting towards those limit downs, can move pretty quick to get there. All right, Hoag.
Here
What do
we
we
are.
do
We're
now?
there. All right.
We
It's
are here.
16,662 is
16.
5%.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. 16,662, and then let's see if we can get that number in the S&P as
Yeah,
well.
I'll calculate that in just a second here.
Awesome, thank you, Hoag. We have oh, you already did, Hoag. 47.55.
That's
750.
that's the that's the
That's
that's the
7%.
7%.
7%. Okay, got you. Wow. S&P is currently trading 58.85. These are moving really quick. I'm gonna pull up a DOM for the look at the S&P DOM, guys. Look at this right now. The S&P is normally the market we go to because there's a thicker order book.
Right.
There's air pockets all through this thing, right? So
Yeah.
on a simulated fill, maybe you have an opportunity to get a decent fill, but I don't know many live traders that are looking at this and saying, "Oh yeah, let me put my real dollars at risk." Speaking of which, we had I saw some traders talking about uh, increased margins. I do have an AMP futures account, and I got maybe 16 emails between Friday and today that said we are increasing margins to 25% of the initial margin for day trading, and they're keeping that there until after the FOMC meeting, which is May 6th. So a whole month of increased margins. Which goes to tell you and to show you what kind of environment we're in right now. With the ES 5% number we'll get for you guys in just a second here. If anyone has settlement price, it's settlement times 0.95. There also is a CM. Go ahead, Hoag.
Settlement of the S&P is 51.10 quarter. 50
51.10 quarter.
51.10 quarter.
Okay, so that would put that price at 48.54. 48.54 is
48.54.
going to be
Correct.
5% down in the S&Ps. Andrew just says AMP just changed their changed their margins to full maintenance margin for day trades. And just to give you guys a perspective, full maintenance margin on a one NASDAQ contract is about 22 grand. Their day trade margins were $1,000. So they're not playing any games right now. I'm sure we're going to see other brokerages do something similar very soon, because these are not environments that you want to play around. Again, Nasdaq's down 5%. If you guys do want to trade this, trade it in a combine. But even then, I would say just kind of sit and watch the show.
Yeah.
Uh,
Jay, I took this off of the live account and put it in an express account because I
good
really
move.
just don't want to make any kind of a fat finger on this.
Good move, Hoag. Good move. Good move. All right. S&P is below that 5% level. 48.50 currently trading below that 5%. The Russell's down 6%. Um, seeing micro Bitcoin futures. Hope. Why don't we switch over to we're seeing the equities sell here. Take a look at gold maybe because we know that gold has been a big mover as well. See what we got cooking in gold right now.
That's been my baby lately, has been gold.
I can kick it over to your charts real quick, Hoag, and then I'm gonna get some stuff squared away on my side.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, just earlier this week, we had an overnight all-time high that they got taken out just barely. I believe that is correct. Overnight all-time high. Yeah, just here hours. So I don't consider that necessarily overnight all-time high. We've been coming off of that ever since the market, has we've been doing a lot of air horns for gold. Just to, taking a look, we're this is the daily chart. I mean, we're right at the 50 session simple moving average. That looks like where we opened up here. Let's take a quick look here on the 30-minute chart. We've got weekly kickoff low 29.53 even. It is largely based off of a naked point of control from back here on the 11th of March. We've been kind of targeting these naked point of controls as we've been coming off. You can see these green lines here are previous naked TPO points of control. When the market reaches them, I cut them off right there. We cut off a couple more on Friday. We've got one more down below here before we really start to, I think, get into trouble. And looking at these weekly kickoff levels, these are not necessarily execution levels. They're zones that I believe longer time frame traders will begin to think about, need to or want to adjust inventories in their positions, bigger inventory adjustments. If we were to look at the Dow, the weekly kickoff high in the Dow last week was the high of the week by about 12 ticks. So you could say that was a relatively successful weekly kickoff level because at that level, buyers backed off, sellers took over, and they have been in control ever since. Sometimes they can be, I guess that precise or that good, not very often, but when we start to get down here around 29.53, this will be an area where I might start thinking about looking for potential opportunities to see if we start to see some basing here, to start to look for some potential opportunities for longs. And remember, everybody, this is not financial advice. Just because there's got to be somewhere for the money to go.
Right.
We've been seeing Bitcoin get whacked over today. And our good friend Jack was kind of suggesting that may be a lot of folks just getting out of that Bitcoin so that they can cover margins if they are underwater in margins in any of these accounts. And we've been seeing a lot of money moving into the treasuries. We have not seen money coming into the precious metals, or at least not gold at this time. I'm wondering where that's going to happen, where we're going to start to see that flight to quality into gold, especially if we start to see some inflation coming back into it. Jay was kind of listening to Milton Friedman talking about what happened during the Great Depression, and
Okay.
a lot of folks have been talking about how we had a lot of tariffs out there, and at the beginning of the Great Depression, and a lot of folks are kind of lining what's going on now up with that.
Yep.
But the difference was the money flow, the amount of money that was available for that 10 years dropped by 1/3. So at the beginning to the end, there was 1/3 less money out there, less money
Wow.
flow. Money supply was really, really tight.
Okay.
because the president at the time was wasn't very business friendly, let's say.
Hmm.
Okay. He wasn't a capitalist.
Okay.
This was a capitalist. Trump is trying to um lower taxes. He's
Correct.
trying to get rid of a lot of registrations and legalities on businesses. And he's trying to loosen up policy if he can. Um, so there's some major differences. Milton Friedman said it wasn't the tariffs that caused the Great Depression, it was monetary policy that did. And
Interesting.
monetary policy right now is much different than it was then.
Stuff, Hoag. We got a question in the chat. Is there anything that's up right now? I got to give a shout out to Coach Paul, who's been looking at, Hoagie talked about where does the money go? Does it go into gold? We have been seeing Bitcoin kind of hold up a little bit here, but we saw some selling in crypto over the weekend. The treasuries have been rallying, and so has the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen, when everything else is selling off, has been a market that's rallying. We can see that gapped up as well. And again, a quick shout out to Coach Paul, who's pointed out that the Japanese yen and the 10-year note chart are almost identical on higher time frames. If you look at it daily in the 10-year and you look at it daily in the Japanese yen, it's almost the same exact chart.
Huh.
That kind of looks like where the money is going right now, potentially. But yeah, these are interesting times that we're trading in right now. Hoag, I want to ask you in a little bit, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Try to answer as many as we can. And I want to, thank everyone for joining on a Sunday, either morning, night, afternoon, or Monday morning, wherever you are in the world. Got 1,600 people watching on a Sunday. So if you can do us a favor, hit that like button, thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends and family. We're talking about the markets over Topstep TV. Really appreciate that. Hoag, you've seen a couple of these.
Yeah.
And I know you said, these are not your markets.
No.
We kind of just take a step back. What suggestions do you give to traders that maybe want to trade this right now, or are looking to trade this?
Um, don't. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really that's really all I can say. I mean, there are speculators that are trading this, and
Mhm.
and some of them are probably killing it. But
Right.
those are speculators that could lose $4 million today, and it's
Hmm.
not going to change their lifestyle.
Okay.
And I know some of those guys, and they're either killing it or getting killed, but doesn't really matter to them. You know, if you can't afford to risk it, don't.
Right.
Can't afford to risk it, don't, because I mean these markets are vicious, they are nasty, they're rude,
Right.
right? It's like and if you are going to trade it, fine. Micros,
Yeah.
micros,
Yep.
and huge stops. You're gonna have to have some really big stops. Look, we were down 5% a little while ago.
Yeah. We just bounced.
S&P is down 3.8 right now.
Yeah. Up a percent and a quarter in the last 9 minutes or so. S&P is trading 49.08. That does mean traders, if you do want to trade this, and Dakota's been saying this, trading is optional. If you do want to trade this, you can trade the equity markets again. Just pay attention to those 5% levels. Again, we had the S&P level, and I want to make sure I quote these correctly, but I believe it was 48.54 was the S&P level.
That's where I see it as well.
Okay, awesome. 48.54, and then that NASDAQ level, where we get the right price on that as well.
16,662.
16,662. 16,662. 48.54. So just pay attention to those levels, traders. If you do feel inclined to trade this in a XFA live account, 16,662, 48.54 in the S&Ps. All right. Why don't we take a look at the Dow? Hoag, the Dow is in that bear market territory as well, down 20% from the all-time high. I've been looking at the Dow and just doing some back testing. I think I'm going to probably trade it a little bit more in a personal account, just because I like the risk to reward on it. We are down 20% in the Dow as well, trading 37 0.27. The Dow down 3.9% right now, did gap down as well. Let's take a look. Move my moving averages.
Okay, I'll figure out the 5% in the Dow now for you.
Awesome, thank you, Hoag.
You bet.
But another market that is approaching that bear market territory. The Dow. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just fixing these moving averages over here. Because I do want to look at the weekly moving average on the Dow as well. We didn't get the death cross yet in the Dow. The 200 moving average on the daily is at 43,210. Sorry, 200 moving average 43,210. 50 moving average 43,33.3. A lot of threes there. Didn't cross yet, but we're under, which is a little different here. We're under the 200 moving average on the weekly in the Dow. That's kind of actually the high of the session so far, 37,712. Again, if you feel inclined to trade, if the market that you're trading is down 5%, maybe look at one of the other equities if you actually think there's some more room down. But Hope, one thing we've been seeing last week is, I don't know if it's because everyone's trying to keep the market away from going limit down, but every time we get to down 5% in one of these markets, we're seeing some buying coming in.
Yeah, it's the top step effect.
Topstep called the price. Yeah, those 5% levels, just be aware of it. Is that a trade that I'm willing to take where I just buy it at the 5%? Personally, I'm not. I'll watch the market reaction there, but we have seen these markets kind of react to that 5% level, and bounce from there. We got a question from Finn Richard in the chat. Do you think this market reaction is a bit of an overreaction? I mean, we all knew the tariffs were coming, and honestly, it's not nearly as bad as COVID, and the move is nearly as big. Uh, do I think it's an overreaction? I don't. The markets react how they want to react. Right? It's hard for me to say that this is a reaction because whether it is or it isn't, it is the reaction that the markets chose right now. I'm not an economist, I'm a trader, and I will buy some things and hold them for long term. But really my job as a trader is to be a follower, so I could say, yeah, this is a market overreaction, and then we sell off another 20% because that's how the market feels about it. um, from a technical perspective, it is it's a very technical trade that we're seeing right now. I think, and I think it's happening faster because of the news. But I don't know that I would necessarily call it an overreaction. What about you, Hope?
Oh, you know, I don't know. This ain't my first radio. This ain't my first rodeo.
Right.
I've seen much more severe reactions, and the market's going to do what the market's going to do.
Mhm.
It's we can say that the market has been overreactive to this, but the market isn't listening to us.
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
So 5% in the Dow, 36,603. 36,603.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Hoag. If you're trading
You
the
bet.
Dow, you want to take a look over there. In case the NASDAQ or the S&Ps are down, 36,603. We're seeing some size. I guess there was some size at 750 in the Nasdaq. Uh, at 700, there's a 100 lot offered at 700 in the Nasdaq right now. We can see that on the DOM right here. Somebody putting out 130 contracts right now. It looks like
Eh,
they just pulled them. Actually, they moved it down 20 points. Now at 16,680. Think about what that means right now. These are some of the thinnest markets that we've seen in a long time, and somebody's putting out a 100 lot offer almost right above where price is, and who's willing to come in here and buy 100 lots right now? And I know the Nasdaq is a derivative product of some of the other products that we trade, but somebody still has to trade 100 lot to get through that price. um, and at the same time, I would think, you know for the selling that we've been seeing, Hogue, and Coach Paul and I have talked about this a little bit. Now I want to get your perspective. When you're on the floor and days like this happen, sometimes you have to get orders filled, right? There's no choice
Oh,
that you have.
no doubt about it.
So how does that work when there's no bids? And I think that's why we see this expedited price action, because no matter what, by the end of the day, by the end of the week, quarter, I have to get these orders filled. And if there's no one willing to buy it, what do you do, Hope?
Well, I mean, as a broker, you're, let's say you've got 100 to sell, you're
Mm,
you're advertising lower and lower prices until people start to buy it. I mean,
mm,
you just have to get it done. And, you know, like in 87, there were periods of time when the bid and offer were 10, 20, 40, 50 handles apart, the bid and the offer. So those that were willing to take the risk and take the whole package, like if you've got 100 to sell and somebody only takes 5, there's still 95 to sell behind it. You're going to be burying price on them. So
mm,
you had some um very tough, strong, high fortitude people in that pit with volatility like that to take down 100 lot. Because if you don't take it all, you're gonna get run over. You're gonna get run
right.
over all on all of it.
Hmm.
Whatever you take, you're gonna get run over on it. So you gotta take them all, which I don't suggest anybody to do that, of course. But I mean, as a filling order, I mean, I could not believe the amount of risk that these folks in the pit were willing to take at these times. You know, there was I tell the story once in a while, and after the minis came in, and there was the big arbitrage between the S&P and the mini, and I got 1,000 lot, 2,000 lot actually to sell on FOMC day. So my partner took 1,000 and I took 1,000, and the minis were trading 15, 20 handles above that offer. So we're offering and futures, the pit futures can't trade above that until we're filled.
Mm,
There were guys taking 100, 100, 100. There was one guy that where I figured he was going to take half of it. So
yeah.
I said to him, 500. And he did this.
That what is that hand signal being, Hoag? I'm not taking anything,
It means,
or I'm scared.
it means I'm scared. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Eh.
Wow.
So you got to get it done. It's one of the recurring dreams that I have too is, I'm in the S&Ps and I get 1,000 lot to sell and I turn into the pit and there's nobody in there. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this?
I'm gonna hand in my badge for the day. Uh,
Yeah. My
right. So
customer's going, "Where am I filled?" And compliance is standing right next to me, but I got nobody to trade with.
right, good stuff. Again, if you guys do have any questions, we know the markets are moving pretty quick right now. Um, take a look. Any questions that you guys do have, we'll probably go for another 20 minutes or so. We are seeing the markets kind of settle down a little bit. Nasdaq kind of hanging around that 5% level, 662. I'll put that on my chart. Six.
And still, 5, 10 points between bids and offers.
Yeah. Even for a speculator, for a scalper, how much are you paying? Uh, to get into this market, you're paying 5 points. At some points, it's really just not worth it. All right, let's take a look at crude oil. Oh, uh, crude
Let's do it.
oil trading 59.56 right now. Hoag, we were on Topstep TV, I think for the opening call one day last week, and we were talking about if we start to see some price action below 60 in crude, I don't really see another level of support. Uh, that's not,
No.
you know, I mean, we're talking 10 points maybe, and we just start to look at whole number levels. We start to look at 50. But outside of that, I don't really see a level of support. I was reading some articles from the Wall Street Journal that said, some of the producers, oil producers, were saying that they might shut business down if crude oil gets too cheap, right? If prices keep coming down here. So
Uh-huh.
this is serious stuff. Whatever the news is right now, and we're pointing to the tariffs for the most part, is affecting everything, right? It's not just the equity markets; it's across the board. So crude right now trading below that $60 level for the first time since March of 2023. We can see in March of 2023, we didn't spend a whole lot of time down there. These are futures contracts, so these are price adjusted, but We're
Right.
at levels of demand that tested a couple times and bounced from here, but I would say this time's maybe a little different because I came down here the last time. I don't think that this was the news, and these were the circumstances that we were kind of dealing with. So I'll switch it over to your charts real quick, Hoag. If there's anything that you're looking at in crude oil, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, you look at the daily and the weekly chart, it's been so range bound for the last year.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that the oil producers and users were appreciating the price where it was. If you watch Landman at all, it says they said between 70 and it's $80. That's like their sweet spot for their business, and it is getting pretty cheap. And you could see, some of them kind of cutting back, and cutting shutting down some of those wells because they're not going to be able to make any money on it. And I
Right.
agree. I think there's oodles of space down below. I've got $57, which is basically just a visual level. I mean, you'll see it on every chart. There it is. Now, you go a little bit further back and you see some resistance, some support there, some support there. But below that, there's a lot of space down here. There's a lot of weaknesses in structure down here that, like, Jay, like you said, that go back to 22, 21. Uh, I don't think, and I try not to think, I don't think that, that if things dial down, if things settle down in the US economy and the economy is able to hold up with all of this bullshit that's going on, I think crude is going to level off and stay at least somewhat profitable for those in the industry. Uh, but this is all demand
Hmm.
in the US. Supply, OPEC's talking about increasing their production. It's going to be, I don't it's times like these, Jay, when I wish I could say, "Yeah, it's going down to $55. It's gonna range there for 2 weeks, and then it's going back up to 70."
You have no idea, right? Somebody
No
thought
idea.
that, and then crude was trading at $0 or
Right.
negative 40,
Yes.
right? We really have no idea. Um, I'm gonna post a link in the chat really quick. Just to for anyone that's trading these markets right now, make sure you read through that. I don't think that I can pin it. So if someone's in the chat that can pin that comment, it's just the Topstep Help Center. How do I ensure when I'm not trading within price limits? Just make sure you read through those. We'll mention it a bunch of times on Top Step TV, I'm sure this week or however long we're kind of in this environment where we're testing these limit downs. But make sure you're aware. I've seen some people in the chat saying, hey, why did I get closed out of my position? Well, if you were in a position and the market traded below that 5% level in the equities markets, then you are going to be auto liquidated. Um, so just remember with the equity markets and a couple of other markets, read through that article, but they'll let you know when you need to be out of those positions.
Yes, and, anytime you see the equities down 5%, you know, there's there is always the risk if you are long and you get stuck in a locked down the limit position that you're going to get smushed. And yes, that is an industry term. If you get stuck long in the down the limit move, when it reopens, there's no telling how much further that is going to go. It will blow you up. We're protecting you. We're protecting ourselves by doing that. So this doesn't happen that often. The last time this happened was during COVID, and I think this is really recent. This is really soon after the last time this happened that it's happening again. But
Yep.
this is just something to protect you. To protect you for sure.
Okay. And remember, you may get auto liquidated. I don't know that I would rely on the auto liquidator, and that only applies to XFAs and live accounts. If you're in a combine, go ahead and trade it. If you it.
Yeah.
Hoag, any other markets that you might want to look at here? We got about 15 minutes or so left. Any other markets? I think what's interesting, and I'll just switch over to my charts really quick. Something that we've seen, a market that was moving a ton and made a new all-time high last week, copper. Uh, Sold off really hard, and copper right now is down 5.17%. Traders, if you're trading in the equity markets and we're limit down or things like that, there are other markets that are presenting opportunities. Do we need to go chase every opportunity that there is in the markets? We don't. But copper has been, in a really nice downtrend since it's made that all-time high. We are kind of near some higher time frame demand here on the daily chart, looking at all of 2024, where we kind of bounced from this level. But copper's been moving pretty nicely. If anyone is looking at an alternative market to trade, I think also with some of the currency futures, those have been moving as well. We talked about the Japanese yen a little bit earlier. But Hoag, any other markets that you might look at for some opportunities or watch the show on the equities?
I'm just watching the show on the equities. I don't,
Nice.
I don't really get a lot of time to look through a whole bunch of different markets. I pretty much got, my main three,
Right.
lately my main one. And so, I don't really get the opportunity. But of course, I'm going to check treasuries, going to check everything else that's going on, but I don't get the chance to really look through too many other markets, which I guess is maybe a good thing
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
maybe a bad thing sometimes.
Chasing rabbits. If you're
Yeah.
looking at 35 different markets, right? With this 35 different markets we can trade with top step accounts. If you try to trade all of them, probably not really making any progress in any direction. Um, but there's a ton of opportunity. Pretty much everything is moving right now. But with that being said, we don't need to chase opportunities. Dakota's been saying it. Trading is optional. Sometimes it's okay to just sit and watch how these markets respond. Maybe
Hmm.
open up a practice account and just kind of see why everyone is so cautious with trading these. Right? You might put on a practice account position and be down $300 before, before you can think about it in the Nasdaq. So just keep that in mind. Nasdaq again, testing that 5% down level, trading 16,690 right now. S&P's at 4905. It's maybe
Jay,
what's up, Hope?
I've had I'm old.
Oh, why you
I've
say that?
had my thrills. I've had my excitement. Been to the top of the mountain. I've been to the valleys.
Mhm.
There's probably nothing that anybody can do in trading futures that I haven't done.
Okay,
And I got to take it easy on this old ticker of mine. So that's why I don't want to play in this. I
I hear
choose
you.
not to. This is for you young whippersnappers.
Yeah, I hear you. I think who did I see post on Twitter? I think it was Anthony Crudelli actually posted on Twitter and he says, you know what, I don't post he doesn't post big P&Ls, but he's been doing this for 25 years because he doesn't try to chase big moves. And I think there's a time and place for that. I think and kind of like you said, Hogue, maybe when you're younger and you're like, okay, if I make a mistake, I can recover it. But I think I'm getting to that point as well, right? I've been trading the S&P a lot more than the Nasdaq recently, just because when I take this hat off, the grays on this side are kind of coming in a little heavy right now. I want to try to slow that down. Uh, but yeah, I'm not looking to force anything here in these markets currently. But if you guys do have
Yeah.
any questions, let us know.
You're
Uh,
not getting gray, Jay.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, man, they're coming in. The if I take my hat off, the camera doesn't really show it, but they're there. If we were able to zoom in, they are definitely there. Um, just a quick announcement while we have everyone here. Just a reminder, Top TV, show is continuing to grow. We do have a new show that is starting at 1 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. GMT tomorrow morning. That is going to be with Aaron Trades doing what is called now the London Open. So again, 1 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. GMT, 2 a.m. Eastern Time. I have to do that for all my New Yorkers out there. Uh,
There you go.
we have a new show. Aaron Trades doing the London Open. I know Aaron has been on Topstep TV. He's a gold trader mostly, but he will look at other markets as well. And then right after that, we have Dee doing her normal session, but now that's called Euro Trade, right? So he's not going anywhere. See the comments already. What happened to D? Just
No,
change the
no.
name. Just change the
He'll be
name.
there.
Just
He'll
change
be
the
there.
name. Euro Trade with D, and now we have the London Open with Aaron Trades. Right. So Topstep TV 23/6 very soon. Yeah, we're close. We are close.
We're
Um,
getting there. We're
yes,
getting
we
there.
are.
You
And
beat me to it, Jay. Very good.
we also do have Dakota's still doing slow markets tonight, 7:30 Central Time. And just a shout out to all of our coaches doing classes in Discord. Coach Hoop, Coach Ray, Coach Vince do classes in Discord every Monday through Friday for Hoop, Monday through Thursday for all of our other coaches. So we are pretty close to content all around the clock during Top Step. Not all of it is about, hey, this is exactly when I'm placing a trade, when I'm getting in and out. I love the coaches sessions in Discord. You know, all of their sessions are talking about how they approach the markets each and every day, really teaching strategy. Coach Vince is going over, market profile. Coach Ray is going over volume profile. Coach Hoop is doing, fundamentals in a bunch of different markets, right? Coach Hoop talking about the hogs and cattle, which we saw go limit down last week, where we talk about a lot of opportunities. So I think go to these sessions, ask questions for all of our coaches. Our job is, to answer as many as we can, to give you as much information as possible. Right, we're never going to tell you buy here, sell there,
No.
but hopefully helping you with your trading journey. Right.
Good job, Jay. Good
Thanks,
job.
Hoag. Thank you, thank
You've
you.
been doing this for a while, it seems.
Little bit, little bit. I think I remember my first time getting on Topstep TV. Hoag, you probably remember this, but I was nervous. Got on a call with Hoag, and he's just like, just be honest with people. That's it. That's all they're looking for. Just be honest. Don't have to come on here and say you're the best trader. Just be honest. Give them information. What we want to hear. It's been fun, Hoag. It's been almost 2 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. But
Wow.
it's been a lot of fun. Almost
Well,
2 years now.
we're lucky to have you, Jay. We're lucky to have you.
I'm thank you for joining me here tonight as well. This has been a lot of fun. Again, chat. If you guys do have any questions, we'll be here for about another 8 minutes or so. If you have any questions, let us know. If not, we'll be back tomorrow. Hoag doing the opening call. I'll be back for fast markets trading with Dakota, who's doing slow markets tonight. If you have any questions, let us know. Where is Nick? Nick was actually in the chat. I think he might still be here. Shout out to Nick. Nick posted a video on his X, about what he's doing right now. It's great stuff. I watched it. I watched it before Nick posted it. So Nick is here. He might still actually be here. All right, Hoag. What else did
Hmm.
we talk about?
I don't know. Get the popcorn ready.
Yeah, it feels like we could take a deep breath. There was a lot of action right off that open. It looked like we were going to go limit down, to be honest.
Yeah.
In the Nasdaq,
Dude, I'm telling you, it's the top step effect. 5%. Everybody's stopping there.
everybody's stopping right there at that 5%. We'll go from let's take a look at micro Bitcoin futures. Actually, I'm gonna switch over to my chart really quick
Oh, yeah,
because
we didn't look at that yet.
micro Bitcoin was actually the only market that was holding up, right? Where everything else was selling off last week. Again, I got to give another shout out to my guy, Coach Paul, that I do at the buzzer with every day. He's been looking at this micro Bitcoin on a daily chart. We were holding that 200 moving average and did not break below it. We saw some selling coming into crypto markets this weekend. Obviously, that's going to look like a gap in the futures markets because we can't trade over the weekend. But this is, if we close here, this is a close below this 200 moving average, and the first time we've had one of
Yeah, that's
those.
not
Yeah, looking pretty heavy.
pretty
Uh,
ominous.
yeah, I think it's a great market to trade. It's micros, so similar to trading micro S&P, micro Nasdaq. I don't believe there are price limits here, so that might be something to consider. Uh, but it's
Wild West.
50 cents a tick. 50 cents a tick. It's not going to cost you a whole lot unless, of course, you're trading 15 micro Bitcoin contracts. Uh, but it is a great market to trade. Started to move a lot like the equities, but was holding up. When everything else was selling off, it was holding up. But maybe we start to see the selling here. One thing Coach Paul was talking about was, and maybe we're seeing it a little bit in gold as well, Hoag, where we're seeing you would think that with gold being the kind of safe haven asset that it is and everything else selling off, that it would be
Uh,
going up. But we made a new all-time high um, in gold, and I'm thinking Bitcoin here as well. But then we saw a pretty strong sell-off. And what Coach Paul talked about was, you know, liquidity issues, right? Where if I am getting margin called in the equities and I have something that has been making profits, I
Yes,
may have to go sell that to cover uh, margin requirements in a different asset. So,
$100%.
is that something that you would? I mean, how does that help us as day traders? We don't maybe you don't pay that much attention to it, but I thought that was really interesting, right? Where you think gold is rallying with all this uncertainty, but it's selling
Yeah,
off
no,
as we're seeing markets sell off that strong.
yeah, it's 100% how these things kind of snowball because, price goes lower, you got to cover margins. You sell some stuff to cover margins, which pushes price lower, which raises margins. So you got to cover the margins. So you got to sell more stuff. It's
Yeah,
just a snowball. And, there's, I mean, if you're an investor, you can use, um, stocks as margin for futures sometimes.
right,
Sometimes it has to be set up that way. You have to have a certain amount of cash or a certain amount of money. But a lot of times, yeah, I mean, this is selling begets more selling because margins got to get paid, and you got to sell stuff to cover your margins, and it just all blows up on itself sometimes. You hope it doesn't.
right. Dakota. Everyone's gonna be eating hot dog dinners from Costco. Dakota. All right. Well, I think
Yeah,
we kind of went through the markets there, Hoag. I don't have too much else that we want to talk about. I want to thank everyone again for joining. Hoag, any words that you have before we go into the evening and going into the rest of the week?
yeah. Just the markets are out of balance.
Yep.
Change the way you're looking at them. Change the time frame. Change the size. And again, you don't have to trade if you've never experienced markets like this. Learn as much as you can, but you don't have to trade. I've experienced markets like this, and I choose not to trade most of the time. I'm going to be looking for something very specific, something that's going to come to me, and something that I'm going to be able to manage risk very well on. And it may take days, it may take weeks for that to happen, but when it does, then I'll get back and I'll re-engage. But just be careful, of course. Always breathe, stay humble, grateful, creative, centered, and pray for peace.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Hoag. Got to read this comment. JT Prop Trades. There's a man in Omaha right now sitting on a pile of liquidity. Buy when he buys. That's not financial advice, but that's a pretty good comment.
Yes.
He pretty much sold at the top. Uh,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yep.
everyone, for joining. Go ahead and wrap it up there. Trade well, trade smart. Dakota's going to be doing slow markets tonight. We'll see if there's any opportunities there. I could imagine that he's probably not eager to jump into any trades either, but we will see what the markets present when the Asia session opens up. Hoag, thank you again. Thank you all. Andrew, thanks as always for helping us run this segment. Talk to you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Jay.
Bye.